having to remind liberals that it was Martin Luther King who said, judge me on the content of my character and not the color of my skin. I truly believe that rap music, there is a toxic culture that exists in this country among certain groups, and it is propagated through rap music that encourages the most counterproductive activities you could think of. That I found it so noxious that there were psychologists and people in the medical community pushing trans ideology. Someone has anorexia, we don't say, yes, you are fat at 80 pounds, here's some weight loss pills, and also think about getting liposuction. We would never do that. That would be medically negligent. The schizophrenic man that presents and says the CIA is hiding in his bushes, we don't say, you are correct with that thought. I'm going to affirm it. Here's a gun and a knife to defend yourself. There's a number of other popular detransitioners that have talked about the lasting effect that being put on hormones or having even the chest compression belt wrapped around them has caused them to say, oh, there's no long-lasting effects to getting an 8-year-old tattooed all over his body. Bruce, I bet within 10 years they'd be okay with it. They wouldn't have any pain. Do we let people tattoo their little 8-year-olds all over their body? Of course not.
So why are we doing this? What is the end game?
Yeah, and I think...
Josh, brother, thank you for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, Bruce.
So let me preface this by saying that it was my fiance, Jackie, that introduced me to you. And that's how I actually met Ant. She saw Ant's shit. She's like, babe, you got to look at this guy. And then she did the same for you. And she's like, babe, you got to look at this guy. And your shit is so funny. It's so amusing, but at the same time, it actually exposes the hypocrisy and stupidity of people on the left. So on one hand, you're entertaining, and on the other hand, you are also illuminating people to their fucking stupidity. But I've watched a shit ton of your videos, and there seems to be a point when people glean in on the fact that they're being played. Has anyone ever gotten just really pissed off with you?
Yeah, leftists in general, I think subconsciously they know they don't have truth on their side. Mm-hmm. And when you're spewing a lie or regurgitating an untruth, I think it, weighs heavily on you. And I think they project that onto conservatives a lot because they're angry, not at us, Bruce, but I think at the fact that they know they're lying. They know when they say a man is a woman, that's a lie. And so instead of just saying, look, I'm dealing with cognitive dissonance and I'm frustrated, Josh, no one's going to say that.
No.
They're going to start yelling at you. They're going to call you a Nazi, a fascist. And so I never take it personally. And I don't think anyone should. I think that is the behavior. These ad hominem attacks, the yelling, the stomping, the tantrums, that is all a sign that someone is dealing with severe cognitive dissonance, and I expect it. At some protests, I've been kind of violently, verbally assaulted, but I have thick skin, and that's why I do what I do, and I am where I am, because it does take someone with thicker skin, and I understand that not everyone has that, and that's fine, but I think for people like me and you, if we're in this industry, it's because we can withstand those verbal attacks.
You've got... I couldn't handle the shit you put up with. As soon as someone gets disrespectful or in my face, it's for me, it's like a call to violence. I just don't like when people get in your face and they start screaming at you and everything else. It just immediately makes me, because we've lost that of communication now. Like, you've elevated it to the fact that you need to be aggressive with me. If you and I want to have a discussion and I don't agree with you and you don't agree with me, cool. Maybe we can educate each other, maybe not. But when you start getting in my face and start fucking, yelling at me, I think communication is gone and now we have to just resort to being a caveman.
Well, so I understand that, and what's interesting is I don't get upset when they get mad with me, but what upset me most was when Charlie Kirk tried to have civil discussions with people and they murdered him. My blood boiled, Bruce, more for that than anything I've been through. I was like, this guy just wanted to talk to people on college campuses where dialectics and dialogues are encouraged. That is a Socratic method. That is what you're supposed to do at the collegiate level, and that's all he was doing, and he was assassinated and shot through the neck for it. That angered me. If someone just has words for me, that doesn't make my blood boil, but yeah, what happened to Charlie, that infuriates me. They murdered him for wanting to talk. And
I agree. Okay, so in regards to Charlie Kirk, let's just dismiss a few things. Do you think Tyler Robinson shot him?
I think Tyler Robinson shot him, but if someone had evidence to prove that Tyler was a plant or that it was from a larger organization using Tyler, I would be open to believing it. Wherever the evidence takes me with that, I'll believe it, just like the kid who tried to assassinate Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. That seems a little unbelievable to me, but I would believe that a bigger organization was trying to use him.
100%. The reason why I have an issue with the whole Tyler Robinson story, you can go into so many variables, but the one thing, and we were actually discussing it with someone with extensive military background last night. So they're claiming that he was shot with a 30-06. And this guy said that there's no way that he would get hit with a 30-06 and it would just be that. He said a 30-06 would remove body parts. It would remove his neck. It would just been a fucking disaster. So that alone, when there's one piece of evidence that doesn't make sense, then you start to think, well, what else doesn't make sense? What else are we being lied to about? And unfortunately, and I've said this many times with many guests, I don't think we are ever going to know the truth on Charlie Kirk.
I agree with that. And Kash Patel said that there were certain phrases written on the bullets or inscribed on the bullets that seems a little unbelievable. Fairly lengthy things like, if you're reading this, you are gay. What's the chances that this young kid was able to inscribe that on a 30-06 piece of ammunition? There's other things like him getting on a Discord server and sending messages as soon as it was done to his lover saying, I did it, babe. I killed Charlie. These sound like scripted mea culpas that are intentionally put there to kind of try to frame it on this kid. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do it. It just seems a little performative. And a lot of the stuff that Kash Patel was saying occurred seemed a little performative. And I have to be honest, some of the things I've seen from Erica Kirk seem a little performative. And it's okay to say that. It's okay to criticize things that seem off. And I am not saying that therefore there's a conspiracy. I'm not saying Erica Kirk was in on it. I am allowed to just say she seems a little off when she's spending, $1,000 at Aloe, Aloe, I think is the company, the day after Charlie's murdered. Why would you spend $1,000 clothes shopping? Why would you get on a Zoom meeting with everybody at your company a few days after he's killed and be laughing and giggling, talking about all the money and the views you're getting? It's okay to say those things are weird, and I get that everyone grieves differently.
That's such a bullshit excuse.
But when my dad died, I was not taking an Instagram video 24 hours later of his dead body lying in a coffin. I didn't post for 3 months. So as someone who's lost a loved one, and they weren't even assassinated on television for the whole world to watch, it seems a little weird, and I think it's okay to say that.
Yes. Because, funny, Ant and I did a video about the whole Erica Kirk thing, dude, and we got lit up. 7.1 million views.
I saw it.
Fucking insane. And it's not like we are making accusations on anybody. We are simply saying that, it's okay to ask questions. Shit didn't make sense, right? And when you start to suppress my ability to ask questions, then I start to wonder, why don't you want me to ask questions?
And I think it's that, saying you can't ask questions, especially of a libertarian or a conservative like many of us are, it makes us go, oh no, we're going to ask questions.
Right. And now I'm going to ask him even more because now you're trying to shut me down.
And you know who the morality police usually are? You know who's usually trying to censor free speech? The left.
100.
But now we see it so much with the right. Anytime we question the narrative with Erica Kirk or anything, or even what Israel's doing.
Yep. We'll get there.
No, you can't say that. And it's like, hey, I would expect censoring speech from the left and from the woke mob, but it's really sad when I'm seeing it from people within the conservative community. We should be able to have discussions. That's what Charlie stood for. And we should be able to talk openly about things and question things.
Do you think the right or the Republican side is becoming fractured?
They are. I think Israel is causing acrimony within the conservative movement.
Dude, you're fucking highly intelligent, eh?
Yeah.
Like, your vocabulary is quite extensive. You're very articulate.
I have a Juris Doctor, so I went to law school. I graduated in 2013 with my Juris Doctor. I never took the bar, so I didn't become a lawyer. But I do have a JD, and yeah, you see kind of what you said, this fissure that's happening within the conservative community, kind of people that want America first, and then other people who are kind of like, whatever Trump does, that's okay, and that's what I'm going to support, even if it puts Israel first. And I tend to fall in between the two. I want Americans taken care of above illegal immigrants, above Israel's interests, above anyone else's. I am a patriot like we are. And if you're a patriot, you're going to want to put America first. Now, I disagree with the rampant homophobia coming from people like Nick Fuentes and others. So I am definitely not a fan, and I actually disagree with almost everything Nick Fuentes says. But when it comes to putting America first, I think that's what we should be doing. And so, yes, you're seeing these two camps that are kind of developing, and it's hurting us. And
Agreed.
It's going to help the Democrats win, I think, in the next election. So we got to come together. We got to come together because there's a huge fracture.
Yes, and divided you fall, man. So in the midterms coming up, what do you think is going to happen?
I think whoever's in power tends to lose seats in the midterms because it's easy to criticize whoever's in power and to think the grass is greener on the other side. So I think you'll see Democrats picking up seats in, the House and the Senate. I don't have a crystal ball, so it's hard for me I'm not clairvoyant, but I think it's easy to criticize who's in power. And guess what? There's a lot to criticize right now, especially with us on the verge of World War III. And so I think Democrats have the rhetoric down to maybe win some elections, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm quite pensive about what could potentially happen. And I think it's sad that a side that stands for, in my perspective, a very logical perspective about the way things should happen. And I concur. I do not believe that just because you support Trump, you have to support everything that he does, right? I think when we become so myopic that we just, we have blinders on and, okay, I'm a Trump supporter and I have to agree with everything he does. I think what we should do is we should be looking for truth. I think we should be looking for what is best for the country. And unfortunately, as a Canadian, for 135 days left, Canada's fucked, right? We are letting in so many immigrants. The Liberal Party has absolutely fucked Canada up. Crime is an all-time high. Grocery prices are through the roof. Housing is just unbelievable. First-time buyers in Canada cannot afford to buy a house, right? It's just because we've let in so many immigrants that, they'll live 15 to a house, so they're buying the house, right? Whereas, a new home buyer, we can't afford it. They can't afford it. It's unfortunate. And I do not want to see that happen here. So you touched on illegal immigration. Clarify that. What is your perspective on that?
Well, I think we're a country of laws. I think any industrialized nation needs to be a country of laws, whether it comes to immigration or voting or a myriad of other things. Obviously, I have a respect for the law, having gone to law school.
Why didn't you take the bar?
I didn't take the bar because by my second year in law school, I knew it wasn't for me. I'm not a paper pusher, and researching case law is 95% of a lawyer's work. I thought it was going to be adjudicating cases in a courtroom and
That's
arguing.
how they make it look sexy on TV, bro.
On TV, but it's 95% paperwork and case law research at a computer, and that's just not what I'm built for. So I said, I have a voice and I want to talk about something, and I think my opinion's valuable. How can I use it? Since I can't do it in the courtroom the way I wanted to, maybe I can do it in society writ large. And so that's when social media came about. This was in 2013, 2014. Instagram was becoming big and I jumped on it. And now I'm just now getting popular 12 years after starting it.
Well,
so.
I think in general, there's been such an explosion of people going on the internet, on social media, that there's a lot more attention. People are spending, good or bad, a lot more time on social media. But again, like I said earlier to you, what I find so great about what you do is that, first of all, it's creative as fuck, okay? And secondly, you are exposing people's stupidity. And do you have to get model releases, by the way?
No.
Because you're not showing them.
I'm not showing anyone else.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
And I try to use, even the premise of my videos, I'm a trans native. Well, I didn't create that. Liberals give us endless ammunition. They created this idea that things aren't a binary, they're a spectrum. And guess what? Unlike our biological sex, which actually is a binary, our racial and cultural heritage isn't. It actually is a spectrum that's subjective. And so I said, if we're going to play this isn't a binary game, then I'm going to identify as a different race. And
I saw that one that you're talking about. It's fucking dope, dude.
Trans indigenous or trans natives for ICE is, that's a liberal woke concept that I'm taking and drawing it out to its absurd end. And so if people are mad at me, if the left's mad at me, they can be mad at themselves because they are the ones that gave me the creative juices to make the videos I make.
But that's what is so offensive to them, because it's because of, like, there's moments in life when you're doing something and you're like, oh, fuck, I fucked this up, right? And I could just hear it in their voices when they're talking to you, because they're so nice in the beginning to you. And I love your shit, dude, because there's a time when you're talking, then all of a sudden it's like a switch, and you go from this character to like, you stupid bitch, right? And then you just roll over them, and I love it, man. And then at the same moment where you switch, they're like, oh shit, right? And then they just get all fucking mad at you, and they're like, I think you should leave. Like that, you went into this woman's house, and she was so adamant about trying to push you out. I'm not sure what you were.
I don't talking about guns, and she said we should ban guns, and then I said,
right.
Well, should we ban abortions? Well, no, people will keep getting abortions. Well, if we try to ban guns, won't people keep trying to get guns illegally? I try to show them the hypocrisy of their arguments and how easily they fall apart, and it usually happens by just creating a few setup questions and then creating the bait and switch. And,
Brilliant.
And I have to, attribute that to law school and the Socratic method and kind of leading people to water and getting them to say what you want to say. And so you just have to set them up. Yeah.
Nice. So when you decided not to pursue the bar, that's when you made the transition to social media, and you had this was your concept right from the start?
It was not. I did mental health for 8 years. So I did mental health awareness. And so I talked about cognitive behavioral therapy to treat depression and anxiety and a host of thought disorders. And it was my understanding of psychology and how important it was that we be healthy and that we be of right mind that I found it so noxious that there were psychologists and people in the medical community pushing trans ideology, because we don't affirm mental illnesses in the medical community. What we do is we disabuse people of their faulty thinking. I'll give you some examples. Someone has anorexia. We don't say, yes, you are fat at 80 pounds. Here's some weight loss pills, and also think about getting liposuction. We would never do that. That would be medically negligent. The schizophrenic man that presents and says the CIA is hiding in his bushes, we don't say, you are correct with that thought. I'm going to affirm it. Here's a gun and a knife to defend yourself. When someone has body dysmorphia and they say, I think my nose is 10 inches too big, we don't say, you are right, you should chop it off. Why is transgenderism the only mental illness and thought disorder, however the DSM 4 or 5 wants to categorize it, the only one that we have to affirm the faulty thinking? In every other mental illness that presents, we disabuse people of the faulty thinking and we ground them in reality. And so I think it is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that is what motivated me to say, you know what, we need to take an approach with gender ideology just like we take with anorexia, just like we take with body dysmorphia and schizophrenia and any other faulty thinking, depression. My life is worthless. We say, no, it's not. Your life is worth living. And so when a man says, I am a woman, the person's job is to say, no, you are not. You have some faulty thinking. Let's get to the core of this. And so I am just very offended by how transgenderism is treated in the medical community. I have a niece that at 15 years old, she had severe anxiety and depression. She was deluded by the trans cult into thinking she was transgender. And now she calls herself a man, and she's blowing thousands of dollars on gender reassignment surgery, and she seems absolutely miserable. And she thinks because she has some hair on her arms and she cut off the hair on her head that makes her a man. And I wish that there were some medical people of integrity that would say, you know what? you're not a man and you're never going to be a man. You are a beautiful woman and you have some faulty thinking, and we're going to use cognitive behavioral therapy to get at the root of this. And
I'm a big fan of CBT, first of all. More to the fact that I think we are quick, just to touch on psychology for a bit, that we're very quick to say, okay, you had trauma in your youth, and this is why you're thinking the way. That may be true, but that doesn't fix the problem currently, right? So I think we need to address the fact that if you do have faulty thinking, depression, anxiety, you need to deal with it here and now, as opposed to blaming the fact that you went on stage when you were a fucking kid and everybody laughed at you, right?
So Albert Ellis is considered the founder of cognitive behavioral
CBT,
therapy, of CBT. It was called REBT at the time, and he touched on exactly what you did, that the psychoanalysis of Freud, where you go back into past traumas, is not helpful or instructive in figuring out how to get healthy now. So I was talking to Ant the other day, and he said, I don't like to focus on the past because it's not healthy. That is basically the mantra of CBT. We are not going to focus on the past, only insofar as much as it can inform us on how to get better now.
100.
We're going to focus from today forward how to restructure our catastrophic thinking to not be catastrophic so that we can live a happy and contented life. And it really comes down to that, is just restructuring our catastrophic thoughts to not be catastrophic.
100%.
And obsessing over the past has never fixed anyone.
No, but I do believe that we need to understand the mistakes we've made in the past so we don't repeat them. I think there's merit in being introspective and understanding, okay, so this happened to me and I responded this way. And I'm a big believer in understanding why we think a certain way, because if we don't recognize the fact that we do have faulty thinking, there's no way to address it. But that's it, man. Understand that, okay, this happened, I thought this way, this kind of thinking is faulty, but let's deal with the here and now today. How do I fix my thinking today? This whole trauma in the past and dealing with that and becoming comfortable with that, I think is bullshit.
Well, and they're using it to countenance the way you're thinking now. And so what they're saying is you were abused in the past, and so you are justified in thinking the way you're thinking now, and keep feeling that you were wronged, and that's okay. They're saying you're okay the way you're thinking now. Cognitive behavioral therapy says, no, the way you're thinking now is upsetting you.
Right.
It's distressing you. And so it's nice to understand why you think the way you're thinking, which is what you said, but we are going to fix that.
100%.
And I think psychoanalysis says we're not going to fix it. You're justified having this depressive thinking. Keep thinking it because you dealt with a terrible situation 20 years ago. And I don't like that, and it's not helpful to the person. And affirming a transgender person's misbelief that they are the opposite sex is not helpful. You are virtue signaling, and you are selfishly trying to gain points with the community
100
at the detriment of that person. They are harming that confused individual. We would never do that with the anorexic person. We would never say take a weight loss pill and get liposuction, you're 80 pounds. We would never say chop off your nose to the person with body dysmorphia. We would never say to the schizophrenic person, here's a gun, fight the invisible CIA. So why are we telling men that they're women? We're doing it. They're doing it to gain points into virtue signal, and that's disgusting.
Yeah, 100%. But where does the moral... How does someone morally do that, knowing that any kind of physician or psychologist encourage that frame of thinking? To me, it's fucking evil.
I think it's groupthink. I think you have to go back to the 1930s and 40s with the Nazis to look at what Dr. Mengele did. I think it is something that is absolutely diabolical, and it can only come about slowly and piecemeal over a long period of time, because we have seen the push for gender ideology from the 90s. I was homeschooled my whole life along with my two brothers.
Nice.
My parents pulled my brothers out of school in 89, in the early 90s, and I was homeschooled from the time that I could go to school up until college, with the exception of 1 year I went to public school. And they did that, Bruce, because even in the late 80s and early 90s, my brothers in elementary school at Thomas Paine Elementary School were being sent home with woke books.
No shit.
And my parents saw this. This was 35 years ago. And so this happened slowly, where the paradigm is shifted, Bruce. The Overton window slowly moves a little bit at a time, because these people know no one would buy into this if they just said, hey, we're going to start mutilating little kids. You can only mutilate little kids if you start pushing little lie after little lie
100, yep.
over a period of 30 years. So that is how we got into this quicksand, and that is how we got into this position, this mud that we're seemed stuck in until Donald Trump. It took Donald Trump to get into office to say there's two sexes and men aren't women.
Right.
And people woke up.
That's interesting because I was in high school in the 80s, right? And I don't recall, I was in high school, so perhaps this actually started, and I'm also from Canada. So I don't recall, and maybe I was just fucking naive to it. Maybe I was just oblivious to that fact. But it seems to me that it has never been more potent than it is now. Like, and you maybe could say that, well, because social media has brought and put a spotlight on it. But I just did a post this morning on it that there's someone, there's a young boy in Canada, and his mother decided that he would never be able to survive male puberty. So she started putting him on hormones, I believe at the age of 8. Yeah.
Child abuse, and most of these parents have Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which now in the medical nomenclature is known as affectatious disorder opposed upon another. They've changed it because Munchausen is associated with something that's not woke. So they've changed the name, but it's what we all know colloquially as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. These are parents that are mentally ill, and they are projecting that mental illness onto these innocent children. And just like Gypsy Rose's mother that was abusing her, and Gypsy Rose was an innocent person that had all of this stuff done on her, that's what's happening to these little kids. But because it's done in the name of gender ideology, it has the rubber stamp and approval of so many governments. It just like men could never go into a women's bathroom until they linked it and associated it with this is transgenderism. We can't walk into a women's bathroom.
No.
So if you use that catchphrase, I'm transgender or I identify as, it gives you carte blanche
100.
to do things that are illegal and things that are criminal, Bruce. And so I think that mother is doing something patently and overtly illegal. She has Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and she should be charged with something. But again, you say, my child's trans, you can get away with criminal acts.
And not only that, if you oppose that, I did a prior post, a father opposed the fact that his wife allowed their child, I can't remember the sex.
I think it's a boy, and she's trying to put him on hormones.
He went to prison for fucking trying to oppose it. So not only does she get carte blanche to do whatever she wants, she gets to, and here's the other thing that pisses me off. People, psychologists, are quick to say that you can put a child on hormone therapy, and if they don't like the direction they go, they can switch back.
Studies have shown that's not true.
100%, dude. There are irreversible changes.
And you see that with the detransitioners. You see it with Chloe's spoken out a lot about it. There's a number of other popular detransitioners that have talked about the lasting effect that being put on hormones or having even the chest compression belt wrapped around them has caused them. And, you know, so it's just patently false to say that there's no long-lasting effects. And to say, oh, there's no long-lasting effects to getting an 8-year-old tattooed all over his body. Bruce, I bet within 10 years they'd be okay with it. They wouldn't have any pain. Do we let people tattoo their little 8-year-olds all over their body? Of course not. So again, they get away with things that are criminal acts simply for saying, you know, evoking the name of transgenderism. And I think it's disgusting. You can't get a tattoo until you're a certain age. We don't let parents tattoo their little kids. So why are we letting parents put their children on hormones? It's absolutely a clown world.
I agree. You know, as I said with some guests yesterday, you can't vote to a certain age. You can't get a gun till a certain age. You can't drive to a certain age. You can't buy alcohol to a certain age. But you want to chop your dick off? That's cool.
Yeah.
But I can't rationally have that conversation with somebody because that would be like saying I can fly. You can't debate that insanity. I fail to do that.
Well, and at the core of their argument is no, it's okay because they're mentally ill. And I would pause and go, the fact that your child is mentally ill, or what they'll argue is it's a thought disorder, right? It's a semantical game. They'll say it's not mental illness under the DSM. It's a thought disorder. whatever you want to call it, whatever title you want to give it. They are struggling with a thought disorder. That is more reason not to make any rash decisions and not to do anything that could have irreversible harm. And instead, they use it as an excuse to do it. No, my child's mentally ill. We need to help them transition.
Why do you think the DSM removed gender dysphoria from the DSM?
Because I think it's pressure it was considered transphobic.
Yep.
To say that someone thinking they're the opposite sex is a mental illness, which again, it's funny because they didn't remove anorexia, they didn't remove bulimia, they didn't remove schizophrenia, they didn't remove any of these things, just this one protected criminal cult. It's a cult, and it's disgusting, and everyone is putting their own desire to virtue signal above the truth and above protecting our children.
100%.
And I don't care how bad I look, and this is why I mocked gender ideology for so long, even though I got a lot of heat for it. I am always going to put my nieces and nephew first, including the one that is being deluded into thinking she's trans. I am always going to put children above any desire I might have to get the approval of society. I don't care about the approval of society. I don't want my nieces and nephew, as they have been, getting YouTube ads, Disney ads, and Netflix ads for shows where prominent characters are saying they're trans, non-binary, and gender fluid. That is brainwashing.
I still don't understand what the fuck gender fluid means.
It means nothing. It's a made-up word that has no meaning.
Right. Like, what do you wake up one day and decide what sex you are? Like, fluidity means that you transition however you like. So you can't even make a choice. You can't even decide if you're a boy or girl now. It's just arbitrary. Today I feel like I'm a hippopotamus. Tomorrow I'm going to feel like I'm a woman.
So gender was invented by Dr. John Money, who was a pedo who liked to forcibly transition little boys into girls in the 70s. So he made up this term, gender identity. And they have run with this term and go, oh, yes, is biological sex. We can't deny biological reality. But there is this thing called gender that this doctor made up in the 70s. And the rest of us are going, cool, you're admitting it's subjective. It's a social construct. So you're saying it's meaningless. Science and biological sex is not a social construct. It's not subjective. It's objective. So it's always going to trump your little gender semantical game that you're playing. So I don't care about this made-up fiction called gender identity because biological realities trump it every time. And that's all you have to do to shut up this whole gender mantra, and nobody does it.
What, dude, that was fucking gospel what you just said. Because there's been quite a few times that you get these parrot chirping students at the Charlie Kirk events, and they're quick to say, well, yes, there is biological sex, but you're forgetting the fact that there's gender identity, right? And just everybody gravitated towards, oh, that fucking gender identity, I can use that now. And everybody just chirped the same shit. And I just don't understand what is the end game for this. Why are we pushing this? And as you stated, Netflix, Disney, all these youth-driven. To me, it's a narrative push. Like, they've lost focus on creating good stories, and Disney did this for the longest time because I'm a huge fucking comic book nerd, and it just seemed that we lost focus on creating a good story. We need to push a particular narrative. But why? Why are we doing this? We can discuss the semantics of that it's wrong. We can discuss the semantics of, the fallacies of the argument. But why are we doing this? What is the end game?
Yeah, and I think it's hard to understand because it's hard for good people to understand what motivates evil people and people with these kind of Machiavellian interests and these people with this it's a cult, right? And people that aren't in the cult have a hard time understanding why the cultists act the way they do. And the only thing I can tell you, Bruce, is there's a book written by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, I love that book.
One of the most famous books ever written besides the Bible. And he says that in order to, many of us feel depressed because we don't have a sense of purpose or meaning. And we can get rid of that depression and eradicate it by finding a purpose or meaning, which we usually get from an intense passion. It could be woodworking, it could be traveling, it could be our job, it could be anything. So when you have a sense of purpose and meaning, you are happy. there is an existential vacuum of tens of millions of people on the left who feel like they have no sense of purpose or meaning in their life. So they need to find a sense of belonging, this passion that Viktor Frankl talked about, and they find it in this cult that tells them all of these feel-good things. You're important. Life should be easy. Government bad. These people bad. Being weird is good. You know,
You're good enough.
You're good enough exactly how you are. And they join this cult so that they can feel like, because many of them are losers in life. They don't have a good job. They don't have a happy home life. They don't have children. They don't have partners. They're not in good shape. So they can find their sense
get a
of
ton
purpose.
of shit for this, dude.
They can find their sense of purpose and meaning in this cult. And so, Bruce, I would argue that's why they join it. It's a high. It's like a hit of crack. And every time they can say, I'm trans, I'm bi, I'm gender fluid, I'm different, I'm edgy, I'm unique, aren't I just so edgy and cool? They feel like they belong for the first time ever. They feel like they're the cool kid in high school for the first time in their life. It's a hit of crack, and they want to keep getting that high. And so they keep getting weirder and weirder and weirder because you have to keep hitting it harder, hitting that pipe harder and harder to get the same high you got before. So things have to keep getting more and more absurd. And that is why they do it. Whereas the rest of us find a sense of purpose and meaning in our families, in working out, in our vocations, in our jobs. And so you just have two sets of people, the people on the right that already have a sense of purpose and meaning so they don't have to join a cult, and people on the left who have this existential vacuum, don't belong to any group, have no sense of purpose and meaning, and all they have to do is join this cult by saying they're non-binary or trans or whatever the new buzzword is, and they're gonna do it so they can get that hit of crack.
But it's an inevitable demise for these people.
Yes.
Right? Because there's only one path down that road. And I think that once you continue down that road to the degree that they do, I don't know if there's a turnaround for you. I don't know if you can suddenly find purpose in your life. I mean, I would hope that somebody can, but I think when you become so fixated on just belonging and at whatever the cost that may be, I don't think people do the internal work to see why am I still unhappy. To your point, they join this cult. They do these whatever extravagant, grandiose movements on social media.
The new trend, whatever's in vogue
Absolutely.
at the time,
Absolutely.
new trend.
Right. But do you feel that people just refuse to look within and see that they're still unhappy?
I think they may think they're happy, but is it a healthy happy? And I think we have to distinguish between a healthy happy and an unhealthy happy. And I would argue, Bruce, that chopping off your body parts and mutilating your children is an unhealthy happy. It may make you happy, but that's not healthy. I would, analogize it to people that are pet pedos. It makes them happy, but we would never allow it. So why do we allow people with Munchausen syndrome by proxy to trans their kids? I don't care if it makes them happy. And so there's unhealthy happy and a healthy happy. And Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, is so good because he teaches you how to find a healthy happy in being
book.
a productive member of society that makes humanity better, that contributes something productive. And, when I think of the woke left, especially the gender ideology movement, it's parasitic. They are not contributing. They are not helping society progress. They are not uplifting humankind. It's a regressive, unhealthy, troglodytic cult.
Another good word.
And you got to find your happy, Bruce. And I would encourage people to find a healthy happy.
100%.
That would be my advice to leftists.
I would say that I would advise that for everybody. Yeah. I always feel that we should, time to time, take a step back and assess our lives. Are we truly happy? How are we doing financially? How are we doing spiritually? How are we doing emotionally, physically, financially? And assess. And Ant and I had this discussion yesterday, and I just feel that people refuse to look within because they don't like what they see. Right? And that's okay. It's okay not to like what you see, but that's the only way that you are going to be realistic about where you are and then perhaps where you want to be. But if you don't know where you are, there's no way you're going to be able to chart the map on where you want to be. And it's unfortunate in the particular case with leftists. Even the term leftist just sounds cultish to me. Right? It's always seemed fucking weird. But I just feel that I agree. I think they are mainly pathetic. I think they're fucking losers. I think if they can't look at least normal or try and self-improve, they just go completely the other way with the septum rings and the fucking dyed hair and everything else. And I just don't know if they can ever find happiness. And if that is the case, where are we going with this? There's ultimately got to be a boiling point, because things can't keep going the way they are. At every situation in life, there's going to be a point where something triggers something, and we see such volatile division in society right now. And we just arbitrarily pick reasons to hate each other, right? Oh, you're a leftist. Oh, you wore mask during COVID. Oh, you're for Iran. You're for Palestine. We just look for reasons to hate each other.
Yeah, well, and I think that's actually intentional. I think it's intentional from elites. I think it goes back to indentured servitude in the colonies, when the people that own the indentured servants would try to distinguish them between their color, and they'd tell the white indentured servant, hey, don't hate me, your master. Hate the other indentured servant that's black. And so they created this arbitrary distinction between the black and the white indentured servants. And what it did is it obfuscated who the people should be mad at, instead of saying, no, I hate you who's abusing my time and who's abusing my work that I'm indentured to, and I'm going to hate this other poor guy next to me. I see a lot of iterations of that going on now, where our government is trying to get us to hate other people who look different than us, just so that the focus is not on them, our masters. Because the masters pulling the strings, the puppeteers, are the corporate elite and the military elite, right? In the elites in government. It's this tripartite that's ruling everything. They don't want us to catch on to what they're doing, so they have to do cake and circuses to distract us. And the best way to do that, I think there's an issue with illegal immigration, but they harp on illegals ad nauseum, and they scapegoat them and blame them for everything, so that we don't blame our falling wages on the greed of the corporate elites. That is what is to blame, because CEO pay has gone up by a factor of 50,000 while workers' wages have stayed stagnant over the last 5 decades. They don't want us to get mad at the corporate elite, so they try to get us to blame Pedro, who immigrated into this country. And so this is a tried and true technique from elites to try to get us to hate each other and manufacture this acrimony between the common people that are all in the working class, so that we are so busy fighting with each other that we fail to criticize the
smoke
elites.
And mirrors.
It's smoke and mirrors. And I really do think that, look, when a baseball stadium is built, Bruce, from a baseball team that is privately owned by George Steinbrenner, you know who pays for that new baseball field to be built in New York? No. It's the taxpayer. It's the residents of New York that pay for that baseball stadium to be built, that George Steinbrenner is then going to sell hot dogs in for $20 and turn a profit. He didn't have to invest his billions in it. The government forced us under the ruse that, hey, this will benefit all of New York if we get this new stadium. It's going to bring money and jobs. Yep. You're going to fund it. You're going to pay for this stadium, and then George Steinbrenner gets to make all the money. Well, that's billions of dollars. Elon Musk gets $10 billion for SpaceX. You know who he gets it from? He gets it from us. So there's a lot of corporate largesse and a lot of corporate welfare going on, where money is being transferred from the working class taxpayers to the billionaires. And that upsets me more. George Steinbrenner getting a stadium that we are paying for, Bruce, upsets me more than the working mother of 3 that gets $200 a month on food stamps. But you don't see many people talking about corporate welfare. They're always trying to blame the other people, and what they have to do is say, that's not your ally. That lady, that working mother of 3 over there, she's not your ally because she looks different than you. No, I have more in common with people that share my economic interests than I do with corporate, government, or military elites. But they got to keep trying to divide us, and they do that by saying, you guys look different, you should hate each other. And all the while, they're abusing us, and they're taking our tax dollars, and they're enriching themselves, they're enriching their buddies. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, both of them do it together, and they're laughing all the way to the bank at us.
Dude, that was fucking awesome. One of the common statements you hear is tax the rich, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that the rich are being taxed unfairly?
So the whole argument, just like with the baseball stadiums being funded by us, is the government says to us, it's in your interest to pay for this, or to give the rich a break on this and not make them build their own stadium, because it's going to end up benefiting you. We're going to provide thousands of jobs.
Yes.
And so it's this trickle-down economics argument that's been proven false since the 80s. It doesn't work.
Right.
That if we give the rich a tax break, guys, it's going to benefit all of us, because it's this laissez-faire, hands-off, trickle-down economics argument. It's in your own interest to not tax the rich. And no, Bruce, I don't think that's right. I think Elon Musk needs to pay taxes. I don't think it should be a disproportionate amount of taxes.
Fair.
But if I pay 20% or whatever it is, he better be paying at least that. Because if we can afford to pay our taxes, I promise you a billionaire can.
Mm-hmm.
But they're always going to use the argument that, well, now it'll destroy his business and he'll just take it elsewhere. No, other countries tax the rich, other countries tax billionaires, and we can too. And we've seen that not taxing them, it actually doesn't increase our salaries. It doesn't increase our income. Target hasn't kept up with inflation when it comes to paying their employees.
Right.
Most corporations don't, and we're giving these people so many tax breaks. So I don't think it should be an onerous tax. I think it should be a fair tax.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
right? Because I do own several companies, and I pay, like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Canada, I pay 54%. I pay 54% on my taxes, to say nothing of the 13% sale tax, to say nothing of the luxury tax if your house looks a certain way, to say nothing of the luxury tax on cars if it's worth a certain amount. It's an extra amount that you pay, and then they tax you on that luxury tax for your car, right? So we're getting just prison fucked in Canada.
And I am only speaking on domestically here in the U.S.
No,
because
fair
I
enough.
do understand it's very onerous there, and they're using your tax money to provide universal health care and all that.
The universal health care is such a bullshit argument, right? You're sick, you want to go to the hospital. Do you want to wait 20 hours to be seen, or do you want to just have either insurance or pay to be seen? Right? In Canada, we've had people dying in the hallways because it took too long for them to be seen.
And I hear that refrain from everybody, so I know it's true,
right?
Because that's what they all say.
In life, I think there has to be fairness. Just like in any concept for me, I do not like bullies. I do not like people that take advantage of other people. So to your point, I think businesses should be taxed. I think people should, the rich should be taxed fairly. And more so, to your point, I think the people that I have over 100 employees, right? They are all at the top of the wage gap, right? So they're all paid. So depending on their position, I make sure they're paid at the highest level of that position, because of the people that work. I don't even like to say they work for me, with me, for me. I like to say they work with me. I just prefer that it's a sort of family mentality.
Democratic.
And it's important for them to be happy. But if they're struggling and, financially, and it's because I'm being cheap with them, that's on me, brother. Like, I think there has to be a certain amount of fairness.
And you don't see that with these huge corporations. You see them these CEOs getting golden parachutes, especially with Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, after they caused this massive economic disaster and a recession. These CEOs are getting golden parachutes and massive $30 million payouts, and some of their employees, their entire retirement fund was wiped out that they paid into. And so again, you're kind of seeing...
That's criminal, though.
That's correct, but no one's ever held accountable. A lady steals $5 worth of stuff from a Dollar Tree. She's vilified and demonized and put on the news. You have some corrupt, unscrupulous CEO that wipes out everybody's retirement fund and takes $40 million after he ruins the entire economy, nothing happens to him.
Yep.
You know what? That guy pisses me off more than the lady that stole $4 worth of items from Dollar Tree. But guess which one our media vilifies? It's disgusting.
Yes, I agree with you. So to that point, why do you think the media fixates on Lucinda, who stole $5 from Dollar Tree, versus any arbitrary CEO that fucks their employees?
I think there is an unspoken rule or an omerta that basically it's an understood thing that doesn't need to be overtly said, which is we are not going to criticize people committing corporate fraud or people that are engaging in unscrupulous business matters at a white-collar level. I'm not saying this is a directive or a memo sent out to everyone in journalism. I think it is a top-down from whoever owns ABC, NBC, all the network executives in some form over the decades have made it clear we don't speak about this. We're going to worry about blue-collar crime. We're going to worry about people that are stealing from the local Walmart and Dollar Tree. We're going to put their mugshots up on the news, and everyone's going to go, oh, that person looks gross. They look dirty. They look different than me. And they're going to be so focused on those people that they're not going to worry about all the crimes we're committing up here at the top in the white collar division. And I don't think this is explicitly said. I think over decades, the media they just understand it. It's just an unspoken rule.
I 100% agree with you. I think there's a hierarchy, and what's funny is that people arbitrarily use the word elites, right? And there's certain families that have been throughout history controlling all aspects of business in terms of the media, in terms of business, in terms of, I think it all comes down to either power or money, or a combination of both. But who do you think is at the top? I did a hierarchy a few weeks ago, and then there was the elites that everybody knows about. People talk about the Rothschilds. People talk about
Koch brothers.
Yeah, right. All these families. And then apparently there's a family above those people that are unspoken, that very few people know those names. But they must answer to somebody too. Everybody has a master. Everybody answers to somebody. And then it was just a hierarchy. Then it went from the elites. Then it went to powerful CEOs, business people, kingmakers, the kings. Then it went to the media. Then it went to the celebrities and all forms of celebrities. Then it went to the public. So who do you think is pulling the strings?
Well, I think you said it perfectly when you said there is a hierarchy. And I think each person kind of knows the role they're supposed to play. And so they're not necessarily conscious of the fact that, hey, I'm being misleading. Or when I put up the mugshot of some lady that stole from Dollar Tree, I'm just basically fulfilling a role that my puppeteers want from me. They see themselves as, hey, I'm just reporting the news. And I think everybody at each step of the hierarchy has either convinced themselves or truly believes that they're just doing their job. But I think there are kingmakers, and I think there are people like George Soros and his son Alex, who really are these nefarious, diabolical people. And no, like most conspiracy theories, it's true. It's not a conspiracy theory. They really are pulling the strings, and in the case of the Soroses, ruining entire countries' economic systems and plunging tens of millions of people into poverty. And yet they're celebrated in liberal circles when they go out.
Absolutely.
Obama's sitting there smiling with this man that hates the poor and just plunged tens of millions of people in Europe into poverty. And yet we're the bad guy. And he's being celebrated at a dinner. So I don't know who's at the very top, Bruce. All I know is it sounds like a conspiracy, but it's not. And we know the Waltons. You already said most of the names. The Waltons, the Koch brothers, the Rothschilds, the Soroses.
Yep.
There are all these elites, and I promise you, a lot of the people on the so-called right are also friendly with these people. And they are all laughing about the fact that we are all so distracted in arguing with each other over wedge issues, homosexuality, illegal immigration. Not saying illegal immigration isn't important and we shouldn't secure our borders, but the amount of airtime dedicated to it is disproportionate. and oftentimes misleading, and makes people think that illegal immigrants are to blame for the fact that we can't buy homes anymore like our parents could 40 years ago.
Yep.
They are not to blame. It is corporate greed that's to blame, but the media is never going to do a story on that or an investigative report on that. And they just know what's off limits. We cannot report on the fact that CEOs are screwing everyone over so that their stock prices can keep rising for the stockholders. We're not going to do a story on that. So throw up the mugshot of the lady that stole $4 worth of stuff at Dollar Tree because she couldn't afford to eat because of that CEO.
Right.
And then we're mad at her instead of being mad at the CEO that created the situation that forced her to steal from the Dollar Tree.
I think also it's more relatable to understand that woman who stole the $4 from the Dollar Tree. I don't think people can grasp the economics at that level. So I think it's also, it's just like how music has dumbed down over the years. It's a weird analogy, but music has dumbed down over the years because I think intellectually we're stupider now. So I think it's easier for us to put up that picture of the chick who stole the $4 because you don't understand the big picture. Also, there are going to be ramifications if you start to expose people that are paying your fucking check.
That is the other thing I was going to say is who the people writing the checks for the so-called journalists, right? The people that are supposed to be keeping everyone in check. Journalists. Who is writing their checks? The corporate elite. Guess what? CNN, ABC, CBS, they're all traded on the stock exchange. So they're not incentivized to tell the truth. They're incentivized to increase their bottom line and maximize profits.
100%.
How do you do that? By telling a boring true story? No, by rage baiting and using inflammatory headlines. They are in a business. They're there to make profits. They are not there to tell the truth.
100%.
And as you just said, they're paying the journalists' bills, so the journalists are always going to be beholden to the corporate elite, so they can't criticize them.
100. They are effectively protecting their ass.
Yes.
Because they don't want to be put into the position where they're fucking stealing from Dollar Tree. It's unfair. But again, I think people lack the ability to see the big picture. I think we, as you so rightly said, that chick stole $4 from Dollar Tree. I get that. I understand that fucking story. I do not understand the intricacies of the bigger sense of business. I do not understand that kind of the concepts or the stock exchange. I do not understand the shifting of profits from one company to another company, so this company doesn't pay any income tax. They can't grasp it. So we dumb it down, and it's easier to say, I don't like that big guy because he just fucking stole $4,
exactly.
Right? Look at that motherfucker. He just stole $4. I've even seen that guy. And that's how we do it. And what I take incense to is that we are so easily duped, right? And, that really came to effect during COVID for me. And we are like fucking goldfish, right? Because you can be mad about this for now, and then all of a sudden, whoop, oh, that's something new. This is pissing me off now. And we are living in a constant state of anger. And what's even more upsetting to me is we all work on social media. If you post something uplifting, inspiring, motivational, that doesn't get nearly the amount of traction that if you say something inflammatory. That, to me, is disheartening. That hurts my soul.
The incentives all sadly run in the wrong direction, and it's not towards truth, and it's not towards fairness, and it's not towards making a better life. It's towards enraging people and distracting people, and the social media rewards that. And an example of kind of how the elites are protected is if you look at Harvey Weinstein and that story, a person who did the biggest expose on him was Ronan Farrow, who is Woody Allen's child, and Mia Farrow's child. And Ronan Farrow is extremely intelligent, and he did a very long book on the crimes of Harvey Weinstein. And while he was investigating Harvey, he says in his book that so many people in the network media would not allow him to run the story or to interview them or talk about what Harvey Weinstein was doing because Harvey Weinstein was connected to them in some way. So you think if Ronan Farrow goes up to an executive at whatever media company he was working at the time and said, hey, I want to do an expose on Harvey Weinstein. And the guy's like, the CEO of this media company's like, Harvey's my best friend. You think he's going to let Ronan Farrow
Absolutely
do an extra?
not.
So that's how stories are killed, Bruce.
100%.
They're killed because the guy goes, no, that's my buddy. And when you look at the Epstein list, those people that were committing these crimes against children for decades, it was only allowed to go on for so long as it did because everybody was protecting everybody because it's 6 degrees of separation. Well,
100.
I know that guy. I don't want you to do a story on him. Well, he's friends with my daughter. Well, he's friends with my son-in-law. And so the story was killed for so long until social media gave had a democratizing effect that the common people like us were like, no, we know something shady's going on, and we want to see the names. And they keep trying to bury the story even today because they're all friends with each other. You think some network executive's going to let somebody release images of Bill Clinton with underage kids when Bill Clinton was at his daughter's wedding?
No.
Come on, these people, they're all protecting each other.
I
Democrat,
agree.
Republican, it doesn't matter. It's
I
us
agree.
versus them.
To me, my perspective on the Epstein files is I don't care who takes a fall from the Epstein files, but people need to pay. The truth needs to. I'm always a believer in seeking truth, right? Because the truth is bulletproof. If I have something that's truthful, that's why, just to squirrel quickly onto the COVID, I was very quickly asking questions about COVID. And they were like, no. Or the fucking response, well, are you a doctor?
Right.
Right? No, fuck you. I'm asking questions, right? So if your truth should be bulletproof. So you should allow me to ask questions. And the problem with these Epstein files now is that I don't care who's on that list. Unfortunately, if Trump's on that list and guilty, there needs to be repercussions for
Now,
this.
I did just read Guthrie's book, her memoir about what happened to her, and she said Trump in the book was nothing but a gentleman.
I've heard that.
And she was very adamant about that, and she has been the most outspoken victim of all of Jeffrey Epstein's abusers, and she said Trump was nothing but a gentleman. I can't say for sure if Trump didn't do something with someone else, but I have seen no evidence that he did anything nefarious. But as you said, if evidence came out, I would say he needs to be held accountable.
100.
It's no longer a Republican-Democrat
100%.
thing. It's pedos versus good, normal people. And I have more in common with other normal people who have different political views than I do with a pedo Republican. I have nothing in common with a pedo Republican. I have a lot in common with a non-pedo Democrat that's not out there molesting children. And again, they keep trying to create these fictitious, arbitrary divisions so that we're not focused. Well, I'm a Republican, so I'm your buddy, so you don't want to criticize me. Don't criticize me because I'm Republican like you. It's like, no, dude, if you're doing something terrible and you're a pedo, I'm going to criticize. But they try to use that to gain sympathy with us and to get the heat off of them. And you see the same thing with Israel and the United States. Well, no, Israel's our friend. You shouldn't criticize Israel. Don't criticize Israel. No, if they're doing something shady, I'm going to call it out. I'm culturally and ethnically Jewish, but that doesn't mean that I countenance everything that the Israeli government does, just like I'm an American. It doesn't mean I countenance everything the American government does. Being Jewish doesn't mean you support every little decision that the Israeli government makes, just like being an American doesn't mean I supported everything Biden did. I didn't agree with anything he did. So it's okay to criticize people and don't let them gaslight you and say, no, man, we have a lot in common. I'm your buddy. You don't want to criticize me. No, if I see Israel bombing an oil field like they did this morning that they shouldn't have bombed, I'm going to say something about it. And you're not going to use the fact that I'm Jewish to silence me. I take offense to that and I don't like it. And they know what they're doing.
Oh, 100. And I think we are getting lost in labels that you're Jewish, that you're American, that you're Republican, that you're Democratic. There is right and there is fucking wrong.
Yes.
Right? And that is what we are losing the ability to see. We become so fixated on, I'm a Republican. I agree with everything that we're doing. I'm a homosexual. This is everything that we're doing. Everything is right. I'm heterosexual. Everything we're doing is right. Fuck your labels, okay? There is right and there is wrong. There is good and there is evil. And there is truth and there is lies, and we need to expose that shit. And the good, I'm a believer that good should prevail. I'm a believer and a vengeful motherfucker that the evil should be punished. That is all that matters to me. I don't give a fuck who's on that list. Whoever is on that list needs to be punished.
Yes.
Right?
I don't care if you're a Republican that was doing something shady with Epstein, you need to be held accountable. If you're the Israeli government and you're doing something shady, you need to be held accountable. You're not going to use the fact that we have something in common to try to silence me. That's not a very nice thing to do. And I'll also say identity politics, the left likes to blame the right for using identity politics in the 80s with the Willie Horton ad that the first George Bush used. He's using identity politics, the fact that Willie Horton was black and he killed someone when he was on furlough. So all through the 90s, all you heard from the left was identity politics is racist. It's not okay. Stop hyper-focusing on people's identity. Fast forward 25 years. Who is obsessed and fetishizes people's identity now? The left does. Just like the left used to call out the morality police of the Christian right in the 90s. Stop policing us. Stop being the morality police. Who's the morality police now, telling us how we can think and talk and what words we can use?
And being punished when we don't.
The left. So the left has become everything they hated about the right. They obsess over identity politics, and they're constantly being the morality police. And so this, as you said, identity politics is being used to, you're gay, you need to vote this way. You're black, you need to vote this way. You're queer, you need to vote this way. You're trans, you need to... No, and people are standing up, and with the democratizing power of social media, they're saying, no, I am not just my skin color. Why are we having to tell the left this? The left was trying to tell everyone else in the 80s and 90s, black people aren't just their skin color. Well, now it's the right having to lecture the left and say, people aren't just their skin color. Hey, left, people aren't just their sexual identity. They are more than that. My uncles are gay. They would be disgusted if people thought of them as gay. No, they are successful entrepreneurs and businessmen who have autonomy, who have agency and think for themselves. They happen to be gay, but that is ancillary and not the defining aspect of who they are. And the left is always trying to put us in these categories. It's a form of manipulation, Bruce. They are just trying to manipulate us and say, if you're black, you need to vote Democrat. If you're, hey, man, Joe Biden, hey, man, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. Hillary Clinton, I keep hot sauce in my purse. These are all manipulation tactics.
And so fucking derogatory,
it's
dude.
So insulting,
It
so
is.
patronizing.
Yes.
And so whenever the left is doing this, everyone needs to go, hey, remember when in the 90s you said identity politics was racist? Stop doing it.
Yeah.
Stop doing it.
And I think to reduce somebody to a sole title of you're gay, and that is your identity.
So insulting, as you've said.
Buddy. You lose all the nuance of that person.
Yep.
You have reduced everything that person ever did and will ever be to the fact that he's gay, he's black. Motherfucker, I have so many fucking layers that for you to just identify me as I'm gay and black, you've taken everything away that I've accomplished.
Why are we having to remind liberals that it was Martin Luther King who said, judge me on the content of my character and not the color of my skin? Why are we having to constantly remind liberals that people aren't just the color of their skin? I'm telling you, the left now embodies everything they hated about the right in the 90s. They are simplistic in their thinking. They are homogenous in their thinking. And as we said earlier, the left is troglodytic in their thinking because they're like cavemen. And it's really sad to see how regressed the left cult has come. They were actually enlightened and I think progressive thinkers in the 80s and 90s. Hey, we want equality. Gay people should have equal rights. They should have human rights. Very basic ideas that we could all agree on.
100%.
And now they've regressed and suffered from woke mind virus so much that there is a brain rot in the thinking of the left that they're like, you are just a black gay person. I mean, it's almost a joke. You can't even take these people seriously.
Yes.
It's really sad.
And it also, to me, it makes me look at them in a more simplistic manner, that they are not more nuanced in their argument. But we have to agree that this is not done unintentionally. I think they, again, going back to the music, they have lowered the vocabulary and the message so the masses can easily understand it, so that we can easily convince people that this is the approach, this is the mind thought. This is the way you should be thinking.
Or dressing. This is all
Absolutely.
you are. If you're black, you should act this way. You should embrace this toxic culture that we're propagating on MTV. If you're black, you should walk around with your pants sagging and rapping. And if you don't act like that, you're not really black. Again, it's a form of manipulation.
And
They're
control.
very in control. They know exactly what they're doing. Look, the prisons are a for-profit private industry. They can only thrive if they have more inmates. When you have people that aren't breaking the law and are acting and comporting with the law, you're not going to have anyone going to these private prisons that are trying to turn a profit. What do? You have to brainwash millions of people that would normally just act like decent people into acting like a bunch of savages and a bunch of animals. You want to encourage them to riot. You want to encourage them to break the law. Everything the left and the Democrats are doing is to feed the prison industrial complex so that their buddies that own the private means can keep making a profit off of the slave labor that's going into the prison system. It's really disgusting because the left used to accuse the right of building a prison industrial complex, but the right are the ones who want people to obey the laws. So the right is trying to keep people out of prison. Ask yourself every time you hear Democrat rhetoric, who's trying to convince people to break the law? Who's trying to get people to
100.
do things that are going to get them to go to prison? Who's telling little kids to argue with the police? Who's telling little kids not to listen to the police? All of these are tactics that they're using to manipulate people to break the law so that they can get them in prison and get their elite buddies to turn a profit on them. Even the food in prison is a for-profit industry.
It's dog shit too. In Canada, our prisons, they're government owned in Canada.
Okay.
Right. But I 100% agree with your perspective there. But you raised a very valid point about the fact that we are encouraging people through so many. If I take a step back and I look at things from a business perspective, which I always like to do about any scenario, because as a businessman, I'd like to see what chess pieces are being played. And then I get some nuance and then I get some understanding as to why this game is being played the way it is. So we've agreed prior that we are dividing people. We agreed prior that we are dumbing down the intellectual capacity of people. It is proven that this generation is far more intellectual. Our IQs are lower than we have in previous
Even though
generations.
we have means that are greater than they've ever been in
100%,
the history of mankind.
because it's so fucking easy now. Like again, I keep getting impressed by your vocabulary, right? It's just you generally don't hear people using words to the degree that you are. Anyway, if I don't know something, I'll grab my phone, bro. I don't have to do any work. Everything is easy now, right? There's no work. So I think we are just coming simplistic.
And the elites are intelligent. They know what they can use to program us.
100.
What do they call TV shows? Programs.
George.
Now, how else can they program us? Through our phones. They
100.
knew with the iPhone, we can start programming people's thinking to become more regressive, more simplistic, thinking in these Manichaean black and white terms. We're going to use iPhones and the television to dumb people down. And I'm not saying it's just the left. The right knows they can use
100%.
these mediums to manipulate our thinking and get us to act. So I would just tell everyone out there, don't listen to advice that is going to get you in trouble. Don't listen to advice that tells you to fight the police and to break the law,
You're a fucking
and
idiot.
to riot, and to do things that are going to land you in prison. They know exactly what they're doing. They're using you as a pawn. Use the iPhone, use the television as a way to edify your thinking and to increase your intelligence, not to dumb yourself down. And I want to go back to, you made a great point about rap. I truly believe that rap music, there's a toxic culture that exists in this country among certain groups, and it is propagated through rap music that encourages the most counterproductive activities you could think of. And people's lives are being thrown away, not by racism, but by programming through rap music in this toxic culture, telling them that their culture is not toxic, it's good. And it's getting them nowhere. And we have decades to look at the data in the statistics at which cultures and which ethnic groups are performing the worst and getting screwed over the worst. And we know exactly who it is. And lo and behold, it's the ones who buy into the false falsehood that there's this certain lifestyle that's cool and you should do it to your own detriment. And I just think there are certain cultures that are better than other cultures. I think people should try to follow cultures that are going to help them be successful in life.
But that's hard, man. That is the fucking problem. That's why I'm such an advocate for discipline and doing the hard work and doing the shit that makes it uncomfortable, because neurologically, we are designed to take the easy path. And the more we take the easy path, the more our brain is structured to continue to do that. And accordingly, the more that you do hard shit, our brain rewires itself to continue to do hard shit. Our society is becoming soft. So it's easy to be manipulated now.
It is, and it's Pavlovian conditioning and classical conditioning, obviously from Pavlov's experiment feeding a treat to a dog.
Yep.
The government elites and corporate elites, they know all about how to condition us, and as we said earlier, they do it through our iPhones and with TV programming and social media. And so it's just basic Pavlovian conditioning, give instant gratification for an easy act. I'll give you an example. Virtue signaling. That is the best hit of crack that anyone can do. I'm going to do something super basic and I'm going to get a high from it because I get the approval of everybody. You see now 13-year-old kids marching out with ICE signs. They have no clue what they're doing. All they know is they get their teacher's approval, the administrator's approval, their peers' approval, and the media's approval. If they march, they look like robots. If they just march out, these catatonic robots holding these signs, they have no clue about the law, about immigration law, about the fact that illegals broke the law and cut in front of 20 million people trying to immigrate here legally. All they know is if I walk out with this sign, everyone's going to say I'm a good, kind person. And so, yeah, Bruce, they are being conditioned to take the easy way out. And it's very hard to say, look, life's going to be hard. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to work very hard and be industrious for decades. You're going to fail a million times. The government doesn't owe you anything. This country doesn't owe you anything. But if you're a good person and you work hard and you find something that you love, you're not only going to get a sense of purpose and meaning, you will become successful one day.
Right.
No one wants, as you said, no one wants to take that hard route. It's just say you're trans and hold this anti-ICE sign and you'll be cool and everyone's going to celebrate you. All right, well, that sounds easier than slaving for 30 years, so that's what I'm going to do.
100%. And we fucked society by doing this.
Yep.
Right? And again, I do not see the turnaround. I do not see the epiphany that people will come to realize, because once they realize, for example, that this ICE movement has now moved on, there will be another movement. Right? And they will just go from one form of crack to another hit of a different kind of crack. And society is going to perpetually keep lowering itself. There's going to be the bigger divide between the rich and the poor. The government is easily taking control of the poor. Oh, you need money. Okay, no problem. Here's money.
Just vote for us.
Fucking right, dude. And as a businessman, that is a brilliant strategy. But as a man, as a human being with a soul, you motherfucker, that is just the epitome to me of evil. And unfortunately, this is where we sit today.
Yeah, and giving someone a handout, you're not doing them a favor.
No, you're not.
You're not doing them a favor. It's better you'd be doing the right thing to actually teach them how to be self-reliant and
100%.
Not reliant on someone else. And someone who is my idol is Thomas Sowell, who was an African-American intellectual on the right. He's considered kind of the progenitor of libertarian thinking. He was an economist, and Thomas Sowell came out with a book called Black Redneck and White Liberal, and it was so good because it said how white liberals have been screwing over black culture for so long and doing them a disservice by saying, basically, you're not smart enough to make it in this world or think for yourself. You need to become reliant on us. They've created these modern day plantations, and I think a lot of the problems we're seeing in the black community are because of white liberals that love the fact that the black community is in some respect reliant upon them for a lot of things. That is not by accident. That is by design.
100.
Vote for us and we'll keep giving you what you need. It's basically like a crack addict being reliant on his drug dealer to
100%.
feel okay.
100%.
And liberals are the crack dealer.
It's a form of control.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just do not see how we fix this. And I'm always optimistic about the future. I'm always optimistic on the condition of the human condition. I do believe that we can overcome anything. The problem is that you need to have the self-introspection to understand your condition. You need to have the desire and the discipline to improve yourself. And I think we are stripping that away from people. I think we are taking that away from people in order so that you don't wake up one day and say, you know what? I want more for myself than this. I don't want to be reliant on you. I want to do this for myself. I want more than average. And we are taking away those tools and that desire from people.
Yeah, and one of the biggest predictors of falling into poverty is not belonging to a two-parent household. And this is very basic facts that economists understand, and it was it's very obvious that you are going to be more successful if you have a two-parent household. And the fact that Democrats know this and they're actively refusing to talk about the fact that children born out of wedlock has skyrocketed over the last 7 decades. They refuse to talk about that, even though that is the number one predictor of falling into poverty is having a single mother. They refuse to talk about it. And so that tells me they don't care about people falling into poverty. They just want a virtue signal, because if they cared, they talk about how the rate of single-parent households in the Black community was at about 10 to 20% 7 decades ago, and now 70 to 80% of Black households are single-parent households, but you'll never hear the media say anything about that.
And I think we encourage that mentality or that image of women going out and hustling and being successful. I am very traditional in my perspectives with that. I do believe that there are roles, and if you are taking care of children, I think that is more important, in my opinion, than going out and getting your hustle on, as they like to promote it. And I'm going to catch a lot of shit for that, and I could give a fuck. But I think if you have made the decision to have kids, then the priority are the children.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone's life matters, including the child's life. And I feel like so often it's,
I think that supersedes,
yes,
right? Because you have made the decision to bring someone vulnerable and moldable, and how that child progresses and grows and becomes either a benefit to society or a detriment to society is on fucking you, right? So that is the most important role that you are going to ever do as a parent. And I say that not being a parent. So I can actually look from the outside in and say, you've decided to bring a child into this world. Motherfucker, you need to make sure that that child grows up to be the best version of itself it can be.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And, someone I would encourage everyone to read is Thomas Sowell, even if it's just his sound bites and his quotes in the book Freakonomics. Freakonomics was a great book that came out about 20 years ago that talks about all of the things that can affect someone's life, including coming down to the name that they're given at birth. Can be a huge predictor of what kind of a job they are able to get. And they've had control groups to say, if we have two people with the exact same educational pedigree, but a name that sounds more ghetto and a name that sounds more Americanized, the person with the less ghetto name, shocker, is probably going to get the job. And this is all very common knowledge. And so the book just delves into even abortion rates. When abortion is legal, the crime rate tends to go down in the future years. And I'm not taking a stance on abortion one way or the other. I just think the book Freakonomics points out a lot of interesting factoids. And so I just encourage everybody to read that.
I'll take a look at it. Brother, I could actually speak to you for hours. That was so enlightening to me. You were so passionate, right? And in fact, I didn't think this conversation was going to be like this. I thought we were going to talk about you goofing around.
So did I. And it turned into an amazing conversation.
So I'm honored, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. We're out.